Good morning and welcome to What's Going On. Here we are, Dolores Vidal speaking.
And Janette Cranshaw right next to, and right next to that.
We are very pleased to introduce Mr. Leo Saidnawey, who is Director of the Belmont Emergency Management Agency. Talking about emergencies and disasters may sound like a rather bleak, scary subject. However, it's a necessary one to contemplate, and we're so pleased that Mr. Saidnawey is with us and has done all the thinking for us and would like to introduce us to thinking about the concept of emergencies or disasters, and they can be weather-driven or they can be, you'll tell us. Why don't you help us understand what your role is and what members of the community can do to prepare for the unlikely but possible event of a disaster.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me here today. I really appreciate it. BEMA, the Belmont Emergency Management Agency, has a tremendous set of volunteers that work with us. BEMA actually consists of myself as the director and an assistant director, Rick Knoll, who is also a firefighter in Belmont. And that's what the Emergency Management Agency staffing is. It's 2 people. So we really rely on volunteers. And as part of our volunteer corps, we have the program from the federal government, which is called CERT. It's Community Emergency Response Team. And within our CERT team, we have 100 trained volunteers in the town of Belmont.
That's impressive.
It really is. We have a very strong team. And, you know, with volunteers, if you have 100 and you say we need help, you know, you might get 10, you might get 15. We have a strong core of about 25 volunteers that show up whenever we say we need assistance, which is, you know, very good.
So there must be something very inviting or about you and the way you deliver the program and have people feel integrated.
Well, I don't know if it's about me, but,
well,
you know,
it
people say, what can you do for us? And my response, they don't like, because what I say is very little. You know, what we do,
that got a phone call
I
from
did
me.
get a phone call, but the one big thing that we can do for everyone is help them prepare and help them plan.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that the CERT program really brings out, because it's a 6 or 7 week course. It's very structured. People will learn an incredible amount of preparedness, starting with their own families and in their own homes. They learn basic fire safety, not how to put out a house fire, but how to deal with a small, you know, trash barrel or a very oven fire, something along that line, and more importantly, to recognize the signs of a fire that is beyond their scope. There's a couple of days of medical training for disasters, which does not include CPR. In a disaster situation, the goal is to do the most amount of good for the most number of people, but we take it beyond that, and we have a full CPR, first aid, AED class that we offer all the students.
And who are the instructors in all these?
We rely very heavily on the fire department and the police department of Belmont. We have an incredible working relationship with both. The police department does a small amount of the training, but they are very aware of the capabilities of the CERT team. And the fire department, emergency management, is housed in fire headquarters. So we kind of, you know, we're there. They see us all the time. And my partner is a firefighter. He's a lieutenant on the fire department. So we get along great with them. They step up to the plate and do volunteering. Our classes are typically held at fire headquarters, and it's not uncommon for a firefighter to walk in on a class and just sit in the back of the room.
This is on Leonard Street?
No, headquarters is on Trapella Road, the new fire headquarters, opposite the VFW.
Oh, yes, of
299 Trapella Road.
Of course.
You know, all of our training classes are in handicap-accessible buildings. And again, we're teaching residents in Belmont how to fend for themselves. I mean, the whole theme of CERT is to train people to help themselves and help others when professional responders are significantly delayed. So again, if your neighbor's house all of a sudden catches on fire, we don't expect the CERT team to run out and put the fire out. But when there's a hurricane or a tornado or a flood, this is where the CERT team really comes to play. And the first aid training we do is you travel around Belmont, or actually around everywhere nowadays. You see the automatic defibrillators in buildings, public buildings, and scattered about. All of these people are trained to be able to use one of those defibrillators. So we're really adding to the stock of certified CPR initiators and users of defibrillators, which is great.
I should say.
I thought one of the, when we were talking before the program started, I wondered what it is that we ordinary mortals should be doing. And could we do that now?
Sure. The best thing that you can do is have a plan.
Yeah.
There are basically two types, well, there are many types of emergencies, but the two that we focus on are the isolated emergency and the widespread. In an isolated emergency where, let's say a truck carrying hazardous chemicals were to have an accident in a densely populated neighborhood, and we needed to evacuate homes and they were going to be out for a period of time, then we would open a shelter. That would be the first thing, so the people would have a place to go. And we'd also assist the residents that weren't able to travel on their own. If there was someone that was bedridden, there's someone that just didn't have a vehicle, we would be able to work with them because it's an isolated incident. It's just these 4 or 5 streets, or maybe even just 4 or 5 houses. So we're able to deal with that, and we're able to really dig in and help. But during a widespread, a hurricane that devastates the town, I don't mean to sound like we don't want to help you, but we're not going to be able to go to every house and help everyone. And this is where we need you to prepare and be better prepared to fend for yourselves, because it may be a matter of time before the professional responders or the CERT teams can get to you. And the biggest thing, you saw during Hurricane Katrina, all the talk about disaster kits and how it took a long time for the rescuers to get to people. You need to have a basic kit.
What's in the kit?
Well, I actually printed it out so I didn't miss anything. This is basically from the FEMA, which is the Federal Emergency Management Agency's website. They have 2 sites, FEMA.gov, FEMA.gov, and READY.gov, READY.gov. And there are many different variations, but basically, for our area, the kits do not need to be complicated. You want a gallon of water per person per day. And we say that you should have at least 3 days supply. So what?
3 gallons of water per person.
That would be a good start. If you drink a lot of water, have more. What I do, what I do is I buy, whenever the bottles are on sale, I buy a case of the small bottles, because you can always use them. So you don't want to just buy this and leave it in your garage or in your basement for years on end. So I'm constantly buying. I keep 2 cases off to one side, and I just keep rotating the water. So that's for the water.
Rather than putting it in a gallon.
You can do either or. This is what I do. That way you can transport it easier.
Yes.
Someone may not be able to carry a gallon jug of water around, but it's easy to carry those small bottles. Juice boxes are great. You see the little kids with them, little straws you just poke in. Grab a 12-pack of those and leave them in the corner somewhere. You need your basics. You need toilet paper, paper towels. You may need baby wipes if this is during the summer. It's really hot and you're in your home for an extended period of time. There's no water. You want to just keep yourself fresh with a baby wipe. Paper plates, plastic knives and forks. You're going to need food. The best thing to do is buy high-energy food. That way you don't have to have a lot of it. You want to keep your calories up. This isn't, I want to be comfortable and eat the best of foods. This is, I need to survive. So, high-energy foods, granola bars. Now they're making tuna fish and other meats in tear-open packages. So if you have a hard time with a manual can opener, which you should have in your kit, you can get those tear-open packages. A flashlight. But don't put the batteries in the flashlight. Put the flashlight and the batteries in a Ziploc bag. That way, if it sits for a year, the batteries won't corrode, because corrosion does occur with battery-operated devices. The same with your little AM/FM radio. You want to keep the batteries separate. Put them in a Ziploc bag so they're all there, and then you're ready. When you hear that the hurricane is coming or the bad storm is coming, you can load the batteries into the flashlight or the radio at that time, and then once the all clear is done, then take them out again. But, you know, over the years, it happens to me at least once a year, I find a remote that I haven't used or something, and the batteries are corroded. You want to have a whistle. People say, what do you need a whistle for? Well, if you're stuck in your house and the rescuers are walking by and you're tired and you can't yell, everyone responds to the sound of a whistle, you know, during a disaster. It's just a great thing to have as just a plastic whistle. You can whistle a lot louder than you can scream in most cases. And a whistle is, you know, again, it's a good tool. I forget whether I said cereal. You know, you can live for 3 days on a box of Life cereal or Cheerios. I'm not saying that those are the best, but just as an example, you know, off-the-shelf cereal is a great thing to have. Your medicine, for you, and if you have a pet, you should have the medicine for your pet. And also, if you have a pet, you need to have pet food for the pet, unless you want to share your granola bars. Sometimes a lot of pets are funny about what they eat. And then, unfortunately, you need to keep a lot of documents. You know, if this is a devastating incident, you know, we all saw the tornadoes that hit this past year where the news showed neighborhoods and all you saw was foundations, and fortunately most of the people survived. In order to get federal assistance, you need to be able to identify yourself. You can't just walk into the FEMA intake center and say, hi, I'm Dolores, you know, I need a check.
Oh, this sounds important.
This is important, and you know, and again, unfortunately, you need to have these papers. You should have your a copy of your insurance, so you know who to call.
Copy of insurance policy.
Your policy, absolutely.
Medical as well as your property or whatever.
Well, I would have a list,
what kind of
much like we're all told to keep a list of our prescription drugs with us in case we fall ill and can't communicate. I would keep a list of all your prescription drugs. Plus, you need to have a supply of drugs. You know, your bank account numbers. The federal government, there's a form available. It's the Family Disaster Kit plan.
Emergency plan?
Right. It's a great form. I'm going to leave some at the senior center.
Good.
Those are available at ready.gov and FEMA.gov.
So you can
they
print
have
them
a lot.
off.
You can print them off. They have a lot of great information on them. But these documents, keep them in a Ziploc baggie so they don't get wet. Take a copy next time you're at a place that has a copy machine. Take a copy of your driver's license. If you don't drive, your passport, any picture ID so that you can identify yourself post-disaster. No one's going to hand anybody money without being able to identify themselves. You know, it's just, there's too much fraud in this world. So these are the types of things that you're going to need when you get to, you know, a FEMA center. They're going to need you to be able to identify yourself. And these are the types of ways that you help better prepare yourself to do that.
For 10 years, I was part of a medical military family, and what we would do as soon as we got on board a plane to be taken somewhere because of a problem, or just a flight between things. We were in Europe, then they were very conscious of that, and other times we were in Hawaii, and there was often trouble with that. So we would all take our Social Security card, and we'd wear our medical ID card, metal thing, and so forth, and put it down under our jersey so that if we were floating around in the water, there'd be something to know who we were. So this idea of having something on your person is good too.
You know, and as part of this plan, and as I said, the isolated incident, we're going to be able to help you without hesitation. We'll be able to assist you. In the widespread, you know, it's going to be a delayed response. So what you really should do is, especially if you don't have means of transportation yourself, or you don't get around as well as the next guy, is talk to your neighbors. You know, especially in advance of a storm. Meet your neighbors. Belmont's a nice community. Knock on the door and say, hi, you know, I may look like I'm young, but I'm really not. And if there's a crisis, I'm not going to be able to get. I was talking about myself.
I see.
I'm not going to be able to get to a shelter. If this hurricane that's approaching comes, would you remember to knock on my door and bring me with you?
That makes so
much
much
I don't
sense.
think anyone in this community, or really in America, is going to say no. You know, but do this in advance. Get to know your neighbors. Make sure that they check in on you, and you check in on them if you're better abled. For people that have pets, you need to do even more planning, because if you want to leave in anticipation of a storm, if they say, Hurricane Leo's coming and it's going to hit.
They're referring to you then?
Well, you never know. It's going to hit this area, and you look and you say, well, you know what, New Hampshire's not going to get hit. I don't want to deal with this. I'm going to just go to New Hampshire and stay in a hotel for the weekend. And you have a pet. You should know in advance what hotels will take pets.
Exactly.
Because not all hotels are pet friendly.
Yep.
Now, if we ever have to open a shelter, we're a Red Cross community. We're certified by the Red Cross, and they're our shelter provider. They don't accept pets. Not
Really?
common pets. They'll accept the medical pets, the assistance pets, the seeing eye, hearing, and companion pets, but they will not let your pet dog or cat or rattlesnake or whatever you have into the facility.
What do you do with your pet?
Well, Belmont has a very active animal control officer, and he's fantastic. John, I don't know if you've met John, but he's a real pet advocate, and he belongs to a couple of emergency planning associations for pets. So we did a shelter exercise probably 5 years ago now, and as part of our exercise for the people, he set up a shelter exercise program for pets. So he is very well prepared to deal with pets. So again, they're not going to be living in the Taj Mahal, and they're probably not going to be eating the food that they like unless you bring food for them, but there are plans in place in Belmont to take care of the residents and the pets.
So how would a citizen know?
Yes, how would we find this out?
This person
the shelters,
call for the pet.
We talked about this earlier. Belmont, as I said, is a Red Cross community.
Yeah.
And we make heavy use of our schools for the shelters for a lot of good reasons. One of the biggest building that the town has. Most of them have emergency generators, and they're scattered throughout the community. So if there were an incident that required a shelter to be opened, we would rely on the voice of Belmont. I'm sure you've all got the calls from Dan McCauley.
Yes.
Belmont has a fantastic notification system. It's called Connect CTY. And it's a very sophisticated system. So if it were just a small neighborhood that we needed to target, the 911 center can send that message just to the people that live in the targeted area. Or we can send the message to the whole town. So if the phone systems are working, then we would use that. We'd also use Channel 8. The staff at Channel 8, whenever there's a storm coming, they call, email, they track us down, and they then remind us that they're here. And
Our
which
Belmont
we know.
Media Center.
Yes, they do a fantastic job. So we would advertise on Channel 8 if we needed to.
But what about the pets? I mean,
The pets, if we opened a shelter at the middle school, for example, then the animal control would be there to take the pets.
Oh.
They would take them, what they did during our exercise is they strung a really thick rope a great distance, and then they tied leashes off. I think it was like every 10 feet. So as the pets came in, they could just secure the pets outside.
I love it.
Now, it may be pouring rain or snow, but this is how they do it. First they take care of the pets on that leash, and then they move them into crates, and then they work with the other communities. And maybe there's a warehouse, and I don't know this, but maybe they have a warehouse where we have a nice warm generator-powered school with a cafeteria. They may be bringing all the pets to an old warehouse somewhere. Again, I don't know, but they do have a plan.
That you know the name of the pet, and then the name of the owner goes
Whatever
with the
I
animal?
say that you should do for yourself, you should be doing for your pet. If your pet's on medication, have everything in a Ziploc bag so you can hand it off.
Hand it off.
Those
at that
Ziploc
time.
bags are great. They're waterproof. You just put them on the bottom of your disaster kit, and everything's there. That way you don't have to scramble at time of need. Now, a lot of people ask, well, why didn't you open a shelter before the storm? And there's a lot of pros and cons to opening shelters proactively. For a flooding situation, we would probably do that. But in anticipation of Hurricane Irene, we purposely did not open a shelter. And it was a good thing we didn't, because if we had opened one, we wouldn't have gone to the high school, which is the biggest school, because it's in a low-lying area and it's tend to water problems in the general vicinity. It floods. The streets around it flood, not the school itself.
Right.
Which would have made it difficult to get people in and out of, and it just wouldn't have been the safest school. So if I were told to open a shelter for that incident, I probably would have opened the middle school. And during Hurricane Irene, our Emergency Operations Center at Fire Headquarters was staffed I was there the whole time. And we monitored all the frequencies, the police, fire, DPW for our town and our surrounding towns. And opening the middle school would have been a big problem because that was one of the areas that was hardest hit.
Huh. So it would have
and again, people, when you tell people, well, we've opened the middle school, people tend to say, well, it must be safer than my house, so I'm going to leave. And then they'd leave in the middle of a storm. And that's not necessarily a smart thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So sheltering in place is a great aid.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why
you were falling limbs and broken branches.
There were wires down,
yes.
You know, it was dangerous.
Yes. Yeah.
There was one fatality in Massachusetts during that storm, and unfortunately it was someone that was electrocuted by a wire that had fallen in his neighborhood. So it's dangerous. So, you know, we're trained, we take advice from the federal government and from the state. FEMA is the federal government, MEMA, Massachusetts Emergency Management, is the state. So we're at the bottom of the pile, Belmont, so we're just for the town, and then MEMA I report to the Board of Selectmen, and Emergency Management in Belmont then reports to the state's emergency management team, and then the MEMA one reports to the federal. So I don't ever talk to the federal team unless they're here in Belmont. Mm-hmm. But it's a great program. It works well.
So these forms people can get off the FEMA.gov or the ready.gov website.
Correct.
It's a two-paged form.
Yeah, actually there are plenty of documents on that website. There's the Family Disaster Plan. If you have access to a computer, there's a ton of material. Now at Meet Belmont, Emergency Management is there every year, and we hand this stuff out. Mm-hmm. You know, if you belong to a civic group and you want to invite us, we do that.
I think you should come to the senior center.
I'd be more than glad to.
I think that would be great.
That's fine. You know, other than doing one-on-ones, you know, we love talking to groups, and we get invited out a lot. Mm-hmm.
But you've not been to the senior center yet?
I have not been to. We have. We've been there once before a few years ago. Angus Davison, who was the assistant at the time, went. It was several years ago.
So it's about time, isn't it?
It is about time.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful.
Well, as you can tell, I love talking about this stuff.
I wouldn't have known it. We've been having to pull information out of you against your will. But the idea of connecting with your neighborhood and having an emergency kit in the homes makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Just sort of anticipating what the next move might be, and then having you folks coordinating.
What are some of the things you respond to? You just mentioned if it could be a big hurricane, or it could be a family house has a fire going on or a problem, and you want just a couple of houses,
or a
people evacuated. You know, in other words, big deal like that. What are the other things that come up as an emergency?
Well, as the director of emergency management, I typically respond to every fire that's like a real fire, second alarm. They have a whole structure for fires, but a significant fire, I will respond to just to be there to help. You know, I don't do anything for firefighting, but I'm there in the background. I've been used to go get coffee in the dead of the winter. You know, when the firefighters are fighting the fire and slipping on the ice because the water's freezing just as fast as it's being sprayed, I'll grab a bucket of sand and throw the sand down. Mm-hmm. It's an extra hand. We'll coordinate with the Red Cross. There are some other volunteer agencies that will come and help take care of the professional responders. Like the Salvation Army has a truck that comes, and there's another group, the Sparks Association, that come. You never see them on the news, but they will come to a big fire, because these firefighters are in a burning building. They're wearing all that gear. You know, either the dead of the winter or the heat of the summer, they need to be rehydrated. They need to have energy bars to eat, and these organizations will come and we'll work with them to help them. So as an emergency management, I do that. Anytime that there's a potential for an evacuation, I typically respond just in case, so we're ready. We had an incident recently in Belmont.
On School Street, there was something, wasn't there?
It was up by Oakley.
Oh.
And there was a risk of an evacuation. You know, it depended on how things went. So I was there. I was working with the police. We have an incident command structure in Belmont, and the police had command of the incident, and they did an outstanding job. But I was there in case they needed to open a shelter. In advance, I called the head of the schools, the building and maintenance person for the school department, and prearranged to have a school open. It was actually already open. He alerted the custodian that we may be moving, it was probably 6 or 7 houses rapidly in if we needed to do it. It was all set. All I had to do was make one phone call. But those are the types of things that the director and assistant director do. The CERT teams, they do an unbelievable amount. They do anything that we ask them to do, they'll do. They were used a great deal during the H1N1, the flu pandemic.
Oh.
We had 20 or more flu clinics in Belmont, and at every one I had at least 6 volunteers, CERT volunteers. Not to do anything medical-wise, but just to bring the people in, fill out the paperwork. You'll recognize a CERT volunteer by the green vest and the green hat. So if you're ever at a Belmont situation and you see the green vest, or if, God forbid there's ever a disaster, and someone approaches you with a green vest and a green hat that says CERT, and they all have picture IDs, you can rest assured that they're one of our well-trained team members. And you will be in great hands.
That's really nice to know. It's nice to know they exist.
Yeah, the Belmont Police Department, to their credit, reached out to us a little while ago and held a search and rescue training program. They did it for the auxiliary police and for the CERT members. And it was in the later part of the year, so it was really cold. And we did it on the McLean Hospital property with their permission. We had a classroom, and then the police actually hid a couple of mannequins in the woods. And the training involved a systematic search until the...
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was great. But it was to their advantage to train the volunteers, because sometimes volunteers can cause a lot of problems, especially when people spontaneously volunteer. You have an incident, 50 people show up now, and you don't need them. They're not trained. They become a liability.
So tell me, talking about that, in fact, do you have sufficient volunteers in your CERT program?
We could always use more. We took a hard look at our program. We have a small amount of training money. The town is very generous with its emergency management program. We do more and get more than most communities, but still it's not enough. It's never enough. We looked at the training dollars that we had for CERT and decided that we weren't going to hold a new class. Because if we hold a class, we get about 15 participants, and of that 15, we get about 2 or 3 hardcore, come to everything. And where we have 25 that are very active and 75 that are somewhat active, we decided to just reinvest in the people that we have. So we're running classes for them. There's FEMA
that
came out.
provides reassurance, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, and you got to keep them active. You have to keep them engaged. We renew their first aid every year.
Good.
So,
okay.
So we have a great team. I actually have to say, and I'm sure it rubs some people the wrong way, but when I send out an email to 100 volunteers, they all used to respond. Even if I said I have a training class on next Tuesday night, let me know if you want to come. I'll get 20 people saying they want to come and 80 people saying they're sorry they can't come. So I had to tell them, please only respond, because you can imagine my mailbox. But they're a great group. Belmont is very fortunate to have such a strong CERT team.
Well, we want to thank you so much for being with us, and our time is up. It just flew like that. But we hope to arrange to have you come to the Senior Center to emphasize particularly what would pertain to seniors.
Yeah, I'll probably be joining in a few years.
Oh, my goodness. We'll help you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And until next time, thank you for being with us on What's Going On.